Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Blue, and we are back with another Feral Druid Mythic Plus guide. As always, we're going to be talking about everything you need to know about the rarely seen cat in Mythic Plus dungeons. Just want to let you guys know, I always appreciate your comments, likes, and subscribes, so keep it up. But that's it. Let's head to the video. Peace. Overall, Feral Druid is performing extremely well in its raw output damage. What sets Feral apart from many other classes is its ability to maintain great AoE and single target damage, while many other classes have to pick one to do well at while doing mediocre for the other. This is thanks to a specifically strong Azerite trait, which can also be a downside to Feral if unattainable, as it is pretty much essential to doing well in higher keys. Feral's overall high damage does come at a cost, with its lack of group utility. Ferals do bring stealth, battle reses, typhoon, and mass entangling roots, but Ferals will forever be trumped by their ranged counterparts, who can provide this and much more. Ferals in a group comp should be considered as just a class to be used to speed through a dungeon by providing an overall high DPS output. Alright, let's take a quick look at the stats for Feral Druid. The stats for Feral Druid does change from switching to a raid environment to a Mythic Plus environment, so take that into consideration. This change is going to be more focused on mastery, okay? So, our main stats will look like mastery, followed by critical strike, followed by agility, versatility, and haste. Just keep in mind, towards the end of those, the stats start jumbling together, but the main focus here is mastery, then critical strike. As you start doing higher dungeons, you'll start getting more gear, probably with sockets. I have quite a bit of sockets, as I'll start showing you. How I change my gear is I just change the sockets. When I'm in a raid environment, my sockets are filled with critical strike. When I'm done raiding, I do switch over my sockets to be mastery. I do prefer the mastery in dungeons because they're obviously in dungeons there's more of an AoE aspect, and yes, mastery will reduce your single target damage slightly, but overall, with there being more AoE fights than in a raid environment, obviously in a dungeon, this will help your DPS greatly. Most of our damage with mastery does involve bleeds, and as you can see, mastery increases the damage of your cap form bleeds and finishing moves. This is a big piece of our dungeon damage. Alright, we're going to jump right into the talent choices for the Feral Druid. Feral Druid's pretty simple. Talents just looks like what above. So we're going to go through them for those newer. We do have Sabertooth, increases our damage of our Ferocious Bite, as well as increases the Rip. So this is pretty good. It keeps the Rip active. Sabertooth, this is a single target. This is what keeps our single target doing well, even though this is an AoE build. Next one for Wild Charge. This one, you know, it's up to you. I do really like Wild Charge. It's very good for certain mechanics where boss fights, they require you to the mechanics require you to maybe move away from the boss. And this way you can jump back into the boss fight, start DPSing as quickly as possible. Balance Affinity, this one is kind of your go-to bread and butter. The extra range is extremely helpful for AoE fights especially. I've tried out Garden Affinity and Restoration Affinity, especially for the high keys. Restoration Affinity didn't perform as well as I thought it would, and you're not really going to be jumping out of cap form to heal, and Garden Affinity just isn't enough damage, or it isn't enough damage reduction for me to want to get rid of these 3 yards, because pretty good. Next one right here, kind of your own choice. It's either Typhoon or Mass Entanglement. Obviously, these are different requirements. If there's certain dungeons that do require Mass Entanglement, such as King's Rest, the first boss on King's Rest. Pretty good, pretty helpful to have Mass Entanglement for the globulates, so they don't get to the boss. Other than that, Typhoon is pretty standard in any other dungeon that you can't find a use for it, but do try to find uses. There are pretty good uses for Mass Entanglement if you find them. Next one, we do have Soul Force, increases your damage of your final ability. This is pretty good, as well as give you a little bit of energy back, really important. So Primal Wrath is our bread and butter for our dungeon builds. This is going to give us a high amount of damage for our AoE abilities. Very good. This is what keeps us really strong on our AoE pulls. Blood Talons, this is just the obvious pick for highest damage. This is going to increase our damage of the next two casts, the next two ability casts. So you're going to be triggering this with Primal Wrath, some of your bleed abilities, or Ferocious Bite, depending on if there's a single target or not. Alright, now we're going to go into my favorite part of the video here. We're going to go over some of the AoE rotations and single target rotations. So for AoE, you always want to start off any fight, mob fight, whatever. You want to start off in Stealth, Tiger's Fury if you can, and Rake. Then we're going to go ahead and Thrash, and then we Shred to our combo points, and then we finish with Primal. Pretty easy there. My Rake's going to fall off. I'm not really worrying about my Rake anymore. Just doing all my AoE abilities here. Now, when some mobs start dying, you may be able to consider, hey, I think I'm going to Rake, and that's fine. And if quite a bit of mobs do die, you may also go ahead and start biting. That's okay there too. Okay, we'll just go ahead and finish off this one. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at our damage. So it looks like Swipe is doing well. It looks like our Rips are going to take over right here. So Rips, Swipes, Primal Wrath. These are our main abilities for AoE. This is what you're going to see for the AoE fights. Pretty decent right there. I just want to show you this, so when we start talking about Azerite, you can kind of keep in mind what is your damage looking like. Okay, let's go ahead and move over here to our training dummy. I'm going to go ahead and jump on this so we can just make it quick as possible, even though I do have, there, how about that? Okay, so we'll take that damage away now. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into it. Pretty standard. Just maintain bleeds. Try to regrowth on your bites as well as your rakes. Go ahead and refresh the rake there. Get a bite off, a rake off. That's pretty good. That's not bad. Okay, we'll finish off with one more bite. So we get a big bite. Nice, not bad. Alright, so let's look at damage right here. So Ferocious Bite performing well, Shred performing well, Rake doing okay, and Rip and auto attack damage. So not bad. Just keep those in mind. We are going to be talking about trades next. So we got those ones right there. Alright, we're back. Let's talk about Azerite gear. Azerite gear is a little complicated. Like we spoke about in the introduction of the video, Azerite gear for your Feral Druid is really, really important. The best one is going to be Wild Flesh Rending. Obviously, you need to get Wild Flesh Rending. I'm going to go over the dream gear that you can get, okay? You need 3 pieces of Wild Flesh Rending on every single gear that you get. You want 2 Jungle's Fury, and then that last piece that you need, you want Gushing Laceration. So you say, hey Blue, how is this obtainable? Let's go through it really quickly. So on this first boss, the first boss drops are Jungle Fury and Wild Flesh Rending. Great. This is one that we need. Done. Okay. Now let's go over to Conclave of the Chosen. Conclave of the Chosen does provide a Gushing Lacerations as well as a Wild Flesh Rending. That leaves us to find shoulders, which we can go here to the vendor. We do need to find 1 shoulders, and I believe there is only 1 shoulder that provides the gear that we need. Oh, that was it right there. So we have our Jungle Fury and our Wild Flesh Rending. Tied with an Elemental Whirl, not bad. So you can't find any shoulders, so it's a little bit harder. You may have to do some getting lucky with that one. Or what we could do is, if we do get, we still need our headgear from this first boss. Okay, done. We get that finally. Now, instead of not getting any bosses, let's say, hey, I'm not getting lucky with anything else, we could just go straight to the vendor. All right, vendor, check it out. Well, if I get lucky with this piece, I do have a Wild Flesh Rending and Gusting Lacerations, which just leaves us with, hey, I need a chest with Wild Flesh Rending and Jungle's Fury. Here's one of the chests. Let's check out another one. Nope. Nope. Here's two. Alright, so there's two there we can check out. So there are options, but that is the dream team. If you have those gears, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. In the videos you see me with, here's what I'm running right now. So I'm one Wild Flesh Rending. I'm running one Blood Mist. Blood Mist is not what you think it is. It's not that great damage in dungeons. It is very good single target, but not very good dungeons. Okay, now I do have a Gushing Lacerations. I have a Jungle Fury. Not bad. And then I have my second Wild Flesh Rendings and the Razan's Fury. I'm definitely needing a third piece of that Wild Flesh Rending. That is going to help me do a lot more damage. So what you guys see in some of the videos that I post, it's not even, I mean, it's like you could be doing quite a bit more damage, trust me. Alright, really quickly, did want to go over some things on Blood Mallet. So a lot of you do use Blood Mallet. It is very helpful. I want to go ahead and go to the Hectic Add Cleave, which you need to know about Hectic Add Cleave. You know, it's not really a dungeon comparable. This is with the boss with some adds, as it shows here. Something else that that is a little misleading about the Blood Mallet is it's using Brutal Slash. So when you do look through these, it can be useful, but just keep in mind that these are compared to Brutal Slash. For instance, Wild Flesh Rending rated very low on this one, and it's because they are using Brutal Slash. Obviously, you're not going to be doing Brutal Slash as many times as you'd be able to do with a swipe in a dungeon with when you would be choosing Primal Wrath instead. So we're going to go over a few things. Just well, I'm probably not going to go over them all just to save time. But for you guys, we did go over the best in slot Azerite gear. So definitely try for those. Now, if you're thinking like, hey, obviously I don't have the best in slot. Even myself, I don't have the best in slots. You can kind of come up with like, okay, what should I do? What should I do when I have these two options? Well, first of all, you need to think like, hey, will this help my AoE damage as well as single target damage? A really good example is this like Untamed Ferocity. So it says combo generating abilities deal 300 extra damage, right? And it reduces the cooldown of Incarnation or Jungle, whatever it is, right? So this does it increase my AoE? Yes. When I swipe, my swipe does extra damage to all the adds, right? It also increases my shred damage, you know, any damage. So when I think of this, I think of Untamed Ferocity is like a mini, so it's doing 300 extra damage. It's like a mini Wild Flesh Rending, where this one is increasing my swipe damage by 500 or my shred by, you know, 1.5k. So this is like a mini one, but with like an but it has like an ability tied to it. Okay, so some of these are like this. Now also when you're looking at some of these, be like, okay, you know, primal stat, or my prime stat, you know, it's pretty good in the totem pole, but something like standing still, no, that's not going to be good. Haste, not very good. Let's see, which one do I want to talk about here? Oh, we can talk about something here. So Blood Mist, this is what I want to talk about. So I actually have Blood Mist on one of my gear. Look at it, does a lot of damage here, but when you do think of Brutal Slash in any kind of, you know, use of Brutal Slash, you will be doing Rake a lot more. So I do have this talent. It is not very helpful in dungeons. It's not a dead trait, but obviously it's a lot weaker. It's not really doing as much for me in dungeons as it would be in raids. So this one's kind of a bummer. So you say like, oh well, it's, you know, 6.5 or it's 6.5 DPS, 650 DPS. So it does seem like it's performing more well, but not when you're actually doing straight. This was relative to dungeon damage. So that's kind of one. What I want to talk about also, maybe Gushing Lacerations. We'll go look at that one really quickly. Ooh, if I could see it. Okay, here's Gushing Lacerations. So something to look at Gushing Lacerations. So this is in one of your, you know, the BIS pieces that you need. You do need one of these. So it says rip deals additional damage, which is nice. But the big piece about this is rips have a 6% chance to award you combo points. So this is really good. Single target, it gets you some points, but when, you know, when these big mobs start attacking and you can start ripping on everything, you know, sooner than later, you're going to start proccing, you're going to start getting extra combo points, and you're just going to go Primal Wrath, a few abilities, Primal Wrath, a few abilities, Primal Wrath, instead of getting like a whole bunch of abilities through. This is extremely strong. This is one of the reasons why we don't need crit, you know, like why Mastery is pretty strong, because we can do Mastery to increase our damage, and then we can get through our rotation just with this. And this is AoE, of course. This is a single target's going to be a little bit, you know, a little bit more difficult, but this is going to help you get through AoE rotations without having to crit. So very good right there. Really awesome trait. Oh, something I want to show you about it. Sorry. Gushing Laceration. So it does 730 damage, extra damage, right? Now look at the extra one. So let's look over here. Right here, so there's damage. So the extra, the second one, what if I stack 2 traits? Now we're looking at only 590. So it drops, the damage drops by quite a bit. Why is that? Well, because a lot of this damage is coming from the percent. The percents don't stack. That's why we're only running one of these. But that's it, you guys. You can look through those. Just keep in mind, obviously, that it is not totally accurate.